Merry Christmas, everyone. I decided to combine the last two Youth Wednesday Night Bible studies into one Bible study just because they both really fit together really well. And the content is just about right for what I would want for a video. So we're going to look at both Matthew and Luke. We're going to look at both of those books of the Bible to wrap up our study on how the four Gospels present Jesus. And the first thing I want to look at is the genealogy of the presentation of Jesus. Both Matthew and Luke actually present Jesus with a genealogical study of where Jesus came from, his ancestors, and things like that. So when you read this, you're going to look at Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17. And I'm not going to read scripture to you on this video. I'll let you read that for yourself. But what I want you to pay attention to as you're reading this is in Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17, Matthew traces the genealogy of Jesus back to Abraham. And you will notice, and I want you to pay attention to two verses here. I want you to notice in verse 6, you see Jesse was the father of David, the king. David was the father of Solomon by Bathsheba, who had been the wife of Uriah. All right. So that's tracing Jesus back to David, but through Solomon. And then in verse 16, you'll see Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So now you have through Joseph, but through Jacob. All right. And so in Luke chapter 3, and this is Luke chapter 3, verses 23 through 38, what you're going to see here is that Luke traces the genealogy of Jesus all the way back to Adam, and you actually see the words, the son of Adam, the son of God. And so this is Luke's way of saying that Jesus literally was the son of God. I can trace him all the way back to the very first human created, and that first human was considered the Son of God. But I also want you to notice again here, when you look at Luke chapter 3, verse 23, it says, when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being as was supposed the son of Joseph, the son of Eli. There's two key words right here I want you to pay attention to. First of all, you got the son of Eli. Now, if you remember back in Matthew, you had the son of Jacob. All right. But you also want you to notice here the word supposed, the son of Joseph. All right. And that's going to be a key word that we're going to get into here in just a second. And then you'll see in verse 31, you'll see the son of Nathan, the son of David. All right. So what you're seeing here is Matthew traces it back to Abraham through David's son Nathan and through Joseph's father Jacob. Luke traces all the way back to Adam through David's son Nathan and through Eli. And it said, but notice earlier I said, pay attention to the word supposed, the son of Joseph. What this is the biblical way of saying the son-in-law. All right. So what you have here is both Matthew and Luke do a genealogical trace. Matthew goes back to Abraham. All right. And it's very important to understand that Jesus was a true Jew, which is why you go back to Abraham. Luke goes all the way back to Adam. And Luke goes all the way back to Adam to show that Jesus was there at creation. And then you also look at this and see that Matthew traces back to David through Joseph's tree. He goes back to David for Jesus through Mary's tree in Luke. So if you take that combination, you understand that no matter how you look at Jesus' family tree, he is from the line of David, which fulfills the prophecy. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is reading the nativity story. If you want to read the nativity story from the beginning to the end in one passage or in one sitting, you can't find just one book and read it out of just one book. You're going to have to combine the books of Matthew and the book of Luke. And so, again, I'm not going to read all this, but I want you to get an idea, and I'll top this up in the letter that I'm sending out. But if you start in Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38, what you see here is the angel Gabriel meeting with Mary and telling Mary that she's going to have a child in that conversation. Then if you flip over to Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 25, you see Joseph entering the scene, and you see Joseph understanding that his new wife that he's been espoused to is pregnant. He's planning on divorcing her privately. And you see where the angel comes to Joseph and explains to Joseph what all's going on. And you have him being told basically to accept this and participate in this plan. And Joseph agrees. Then you go back to Luke, and in chapter 2, verses 1 through 20, is where you see them traveling from Nazareth to Bethlehem. You have the actual birth of Jesus happening, and you have the shepherds being brought into the scene where the angels appear to the shepherds, and they go and visit Jesus. And then you flip back to Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 15, and we don't normally get into this part until after Christmas, but I want to include it in here in case you want to do the full reading. This is where you actually have the wise men, where they travel, they meet with Herod. They get an idea. They're following the star, the famous star that carries them to Jesus. They go, they visit Jesus. And I want you to realize when you're reading this that the wise men did not appear to Jesus until after the shepherds did. In fact, Mary and Joseph and Jesus had been moved into the house where they were staying, and out of the stable, out of the manger area. And then you have after the wise men visit, the wise men leave. Joseph is basically brought into a dream or spoken to in a dream, and he takes Jesus and Mary. They flee to Egypt. They stay in Egypt until Herod dies. You're looking at probably several months to a year or two that they stay in Egypt, and then once Herod dies, they return to Nazareth, and this is where you don't hear anything until Jesus is 12 years old in the temple. So that's kind of a breakdown. Like I said, I want to kind of give you guys where the genealogy breaks down, and also a way you can read the scripture, read the nativity story, if you want to read it from start to finish, kind of how the scriptures are lining up. You're going to have to use both Matthew and Luke in your reading. And I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and look forward to seeing you next New Year.